Thanks, Rachel. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for joining today and making this investment in the future of your career, because certainly being aware of the issues in research and publication ethics is crucial for your career, and any successful researcher will tell you that, and I'm sure also your supervisor will tell you that these principles are really fundamental to science. Because these principles are so fundamental, it is not only you alone as the researcher or as the author who's considered responsible for upholding ethics. There is a whole culture built around research which tries to uphold the same principles I'm going to speak about today. So that includes everybody from your employer, from your institute, from your supervisor, from funding agencies who are paying for your research, from the government, who indirectly is probably often responsible for the funding body. It also involves very much the scientific journals to whom you will send your research once it's ready, the editors who decide ultimately what will get published, the reviewers who will review your work, and the publishing houses such as Elsevier who are responsible for these journals. So all of these groups feel a responsibility, and that doesn't even include the dedicated groups such as COPE, the Committee on Publication Ethics, which is an independent international group that provides best practices and standards of behavior for authors, reviewers, editors, and publishers. And depending on your profession, you may also have a professional body like a medical council or an engineering society, for example, and almost certainly those societies also feel a responsibility to promote the highest standards of ethics. And one of the reasons why this is so important, why all these groups are invested so heavily in upholding these standards, is a very simple one, which is that traditionally, research has been very largely based on trust. So it's usually not possible for the editor or even the final reader of the article to know that everything that happened in the lab or everything that happened during the simulation that you created. But there's a large element of trust that researchers behave in a responsible way. And what you will see is, and I'm sure you have seen it in the media, in Retraction Watch, if it turns out that that trust is misplaced, if it turns out that a researcher, for example, has committed plagiarism, or worse than that, has been faking their data, then there can be a very strong reaction. It can be an extremely negative experience for those researchers, because it seems that once your fellow scientists and once the public lose trust in you as a researcher, it's extremely difficult, almost impossible sometimes, to earn back that trust. And that's really important, not only about trust in you as an individual or trust in the research that comes out of your institute, but it's also very important for the general public. At the end of the day, a lot of research will be paid for by the taxpayer, and if they start to have the impression that scientists cannot be trusted, they also start to doubt science itself. And then we get into extremely difficult scenarios where they don't trust their doctor, they don't trust having a vaccine, they don't trust that climate change has really been proven, and so on. So there's really a bigger picture here, and I would urge you to think about really the big picture, but also, of course, these issues can have an effect on the individual researcher and everyone around them. So let's talk about some of the core responsibilities of what is expected from an author or a researcher. Well, what you can say is that having a paper published with your name beside it in a journal, hopefully, I hope for you in a prestigious journal, that comes with a lot of credit. So you get credit for that. It's good for your career. It may help you get promoted. It may help you attract future collaborators. And the other side of that credit, you could look at it as being two sides of the one coin. So on the one side, there's all the positives, there's the credit that you get with it. On the other hand, it comes with responsibility. So if you have your name listed as the author of a paper, that has a meaning. It has a meaning to the reader, it has a meaning to the editor, and the meaning is that you are taking a certain responsibility for that paper. And you are responsible for the fact that the paper is original, that if there are any relevant conflicts of interest that they're mentioned, you're responsible for for you having made a real contribution as an author. Now, these are not all the responsibilities, but since we have limited time today, these are the three I will talk about because they raise a lot of questions. Probably the most fundamental responsibility for an author is something that perhaps almost goes without saying, which is that the research is real, the research has not been faked in any way. But that is a fairly clear responsibility that normally people understand very intuitively.